Yeah, I don't know if this is the most disturbing, but this is definitely top 5. This is Malgas Island, and up to 60,000 of these birds called Cape Gannets will nest here. But don't worry, I'm gonna get to it. So normally these parents take turns, with one going out for food with the other staying behind to guard the chick. But because of overfishing, oftentimes both parents will go out for food, leaving the chick all alone on the island. Which wouldn't be a problem if they didn't know that. Because groups of these white pelicans will fly over to the islands and then walk around looking for any unsupervised gannet chicks, so that they can grab the baby birds and eat them alive while they're still struggling. And sometimes they'll just push the parents out the way and then swallow the newborn children right in front of them. It somehow gets worse. Those same pelicans will fly back to their nest and vomit the half-digested, recently murdered baby birds for the pelican chicks to eat. And because Cape Gannets have no real way to defend themselves, pelicans have no reason to stop. And since pelicans obviously don't have teeth, those chicks' last moments were spent suffocating while being digested alive by stomach acid, only to get regurgitated and eaten twice. Dinosaurs never went extinct. They just rebranded with feathers. One of the world's scariest animals just got a whole lot scarier, and Planet of the Apes is slowly becoming non-fiction. Because apparently chimpanzees are out here murking gorillas. Scientists in 2021 witnessed a troop of chimpanzees basically jumping a family of gorillas. And when I say gang, we're talking about almost 30 chimps pressing a family of 5. Keep in mind, a silverback can weigh up to 400 pounds and could probably bench press your car. And according to witnesses, the silverback was eating chimps left and right like they were paper mache. But eventually the chimps overwhelmed the bigger silverback and even kidnapped a baby gorilla. I'm not going to tell you exactly what they did, but that family of 5 became a party of 4. And it wasn't even the last time, because later that year, scientists watched the same group of chimpanzees do the same exact thing. Square up with a family of gorillas, kidnapped a baby, and erase its name from the gorilla census. And it's not like we didn't know chimps were about that. They often hunt bush babies and vervet monkeys, and we've even seen them use weapons like spears to do it. But it's one thing to hunt something that weighs like 5 Skittles. Going gorillas is another tier of Black Air Force activity. Which is why I'd rather be locked in a room with a jaguar than a chimp. Cause at least a jaguar gonna make it quick.
Top 3 terrifying animals that existed and you didn't know about. Number 3. The titanoboa is likely one of the most terrifying animals to have ever existed. This prehistoric snake, which lived about 60 million years ago, could reach a length of 39 to 49 feet and weigh up to 2,500 pounds. Its gigantic size enabled it to rule in the ecosystems of the time, particularly in South America. Number 2. The Pulmonoscorpius is an ancient scorpion that lived during the Carboniferous period, about 330 million years ago. This prehistoric arachnid measured up to 2.3 feet long, which is much larger than any scorpion found today. Its impressive size and terrifying appearance probably made it a formidable predator of its time. Number 1. The Gigantopithecus was the largest primate to have ever existed. Living around 100,000 years ago, this giant hominid could measure up to 9.8 feet tall and weigh up to 1,322 pounds. Its large size made it frightening, but it was likely a peaceful herbivore. The Gigantopithecus disappeared due to factors such as climate change and competition with humans for resources.
Weird-ass animals you've never heard of, Part 1. This is the crested kua, and it's a parasitic bird that looks like actual demon spawn. It's native to the island of Madagascar, and the adults are some really snazzy-looking birds, but it's their babies that look like straight nightmare fuel. The inside of their mouths have distinct patterns that either look like a smiling panda staring at a couple of targets, or an unholy abomination, depending on how bad you need therapy. These babies have these weird markings for a particular reason. You see, kuas are nest parasites, meaning they lay their eggs in the nest of another bird, making their victim think the kua's babies are its own and forces it to take care of them, allowing the original parents to skip town and gamble their life savings in Atlantic City or some other equally trashy thing. Meanwhile, the patterns on the baby kua's mouth act like a target and draw the eyes of their adopted parents and causes them to feed the kua chicks more than their own children, which may starve from a lack of food. If you thought the kua was weird, check out my newest YouTube video where I break down the weirdest birds in the entire world.
What would happen if you took one of the meanest animals in the ocean and gave it legs? Well, 2 things. 1, you'd have one of the most violently aggressive animals on Earth walking on land, and 2, I know this because it technically happened and they exist. It's a known fact that the biggest menace to society in the ocean are dolphins of any kind. They jump sharks for no reason, slapbox their babies, and they have a rap sheet longer than Drake's. And the worst dolphin of all actively tortures other animals for sport. Dolphins and whales are part of a group called cetaceans, which basically happened because this guy decided he wanted to test his luck out in the ocean and evolved to become semi-aquatic and then fully aquatic. But funny story, there was a group of these land animals that actually stayed on land, and about 54 million years ago they split up, with the animals that would become whales and dolphins heading out to sea. The ones that didn't follow them out into the ocean stayed on land, and after millions of years of plot development, they went on to become one of the most vicious animals in the world. In case I haven't made it obvious, I'm talking about hippos. The African homicide horse is actually the closest living relative of whales and dolphins. One's a bipolar tank with Roy Ridge and a devil's overbite, and the other's a pufferfish abusing shark assaulting sea quagmire, and that is f***ing evolution. Disturbing animal facts that you are going to unfollow me for. Butterflies don't just like flowers. There are many species that regularly feed on mud, feces, and blood. The purple emperor is a butterfly in Europe that often feeds on rotting, decomposing flesh. Also, butterflies taste with their feet and they're attracted to the salt in our sweat, so that butterfly that landed on your arm, it was tasting you. There have been multiple cases of chimpanzees stalking, snatching, and eating human children, the same way they hunt animals like colobus monkeys. There was an incident in Uganda where chimps found a local brew, got lit off it, and proceeded to unalive several small children. A 43-year-old woman was found unresponsive and unalive in her flat, and first responders thought she had been assaulted based on her injuries, until they opened a drawer and found a burrow her pet hamster made out of human skin, fat, and tissue. It turned out the woman passed tense to pneumonia, and her pet chewed up her face and scavenged her body to make a nest. People that live in areas around Komodo dragons often pile rocks on top of graves, since the lizards have been known to dig out human graves and eat whatever or whoever might be inside. Also, women on their period are strongly advised to stay out of Komodo country, since there's a chance the dragon might be attracted to the scent of blood and proceed to hunt them down. Be glad, be very, very glad you don't have to give birth like this thing. This is a sea louse, and it might have the most effed up life in the entire ocean. It all starts when the male sea louse captures and then drags the female into his coitus cave. That's what I'm calling it. It's heavy on the 50 Shades of Freaky, where there can be up to 25 other females trapped in there with her. And to mate with every single one of them, the male penetrates their abdomens, basically shanking them. You uncomfortable? But that sucks, because it only gets worse from here. Soon each pregnant female has hundreds of babies just wriggling inside of her. These baby sea lice pretty much eat their own mother from the inside, and they don't stop until they manage to split her withering body in half. These babies start life by crawling out of the mutilated husk of their own mother's corpse. She doesn't even give birth to her own children to serve her death. Oh, and the dad that started this all dips before any of this happens. Moral of the story? I don't know. Children bad? Abolish children. You're looking at one of the top 5 worst ways to become a hashtag. This is cordyceps fungus, and it's actually a parasite that paralyzes and mind controls its victim. The nightmare starts when spores from this fungus attach and infect an unsuspecting ant. As the fungus continues to spread, it actually changes the ant's behavior. The fungus makes the ant leave its nest and then climb up to somewhere more humid, i.e. the best possible place for fungus to grow. The ant then uses its jaws to attach itself to a leaf stem by biting down hard. Keep in mind the ant has no say in any of this, it's basically having its body possessed. And once the ant does, that's when the parasite no longer needs its host, and that's when things get R-rated. The cordyceps fungus explodes out of the ant's now past tense body, with the fungal fruiting body sprouting out of the ant's head. Its corpse becomes a garden for the fungus to grow and spit out more spores to infect even more ants. Getting infected is 100% a death sentence, which is why any sick ants immediately get evicted from the ant colony. Imagine waking up and having the urge to climb a tree and just sit there until you go from an R to a whir, only for that to rise out of your corpse. Be glad you weren't born an ant. No matter who you are, no matter what you do, be glad you're not this fish. So that's Zamothia exigua, but it's also known as the tongue-eating parasite. It invades its victim by crawling through the gills and then severing all the blood vessels in the tongue, causing the tongue to shrivel up and fall off. This parasite then becomes the fish's new tongue because supply meets demand and there's no church in capitalism. The tongue eater lives off the food the fish eats along with a healthy supply of its host's blood. But you want to know the worst part? If the fish becomes past tense, the parasite can just detach itself and go on to find another body. But since fish need their tongue to swallow food, if the parasite leaves and the fish tries to eat without it, it'll proceed to choke to death. It's a toxic codependent relationship, but only on one side. Create a problem, sell the solution. That's the tongue eater's way of life. That in the American healthcare system. Here's another example of animals not letting disrespect slide. So there used to be a dolphin named Jow. Jow was a male bottlenose dolphin that had gotten used to being around people and would often visit a Brazilian pier to hang out with them. But of course people started harassing the dolphin, dragging him onto shore and at one point even trying to pour ice cream and beer down its blowhole. That's not supposed to go in there. It's almost like they forgot that dolphins are several 100-pound shark assaulting sadists with pretty privilege. And it wasn't until Chow had enough and sent nearly 30 people to the hospital in the span of only a couple months that they remembered. But one day in December 1994, 2 men swam right up to Chow, and Chow was unusually calm and friendly towards them despite the harassment he was previously receiving. And as soon as the men let their guard down, Chow proceeded to fade them 2v1. Chow rammed his beak into one man so hard that he shattered a couple of his ribs. The other man became past tense after Chow caused him to bleed internally. Chow was never seen on that beach again, causing researchers to believe he either chose to leave for good or someone managed to put him out as revenge. Moral of the story: the dolphin dolphined.